Good afternoon, welcome to the plantation. I'm your host, Master Gabriel. Yes, it is almost the end of 2025, and I think we are tired. As South Africans, we may be tired. Maybe tired of Mjolo, maybe we are tired of being a slave queen, who knows? Maybe you're just tired of being a hoe, who knows? Maybe you need to change. Amajitas, we need to change our approach and how we deal with women. Maybe we need to be a little bit more open, a little bit more respectful, and let's stop abusing our women. And women, stop asking men for money. Yes, I say that without fear and without favor. Stop asking men for money. It's not just always about money. Sometimes you need to bring more to the table than just about money. Maybe we want women that nurture, care, that can be reciprocal in a whole host of other things. But other than money, ladies, just stop that shit. Now we also know about the exit of Anglo American in South Africa. It has been a hot commented topic. It was spoken about on Penwell the Black Pen with the organization that is involved in blocking the merger between Tech Resources and Anglo American. What we also need to understand that Anglo American is a sneaky motherfucking company. Why I say this is that as South Africans, is this how it ends? Don't we deserve more? Transparency, dignity, as well as accountability. Why I say this is that we must watch from the sidelines as a global capitalistic corporation in its nature play Russian roulette with our economic future as South Africans. Now, according to the prostitute and gatekeeping Peter Major, which is a so called mining expert, I'm not a mining expert, but I go according to the facts. So he captures this particular scenario very, very unique. Anglo American's move of its headquarters, specifically to London years ago, was marked at the beginning of a gradual distancing from South Africa. So we must also understand Anglo American came through the pioneers of colonialism under Cecil John Rhodes. We also know that the BS Consolidated Limited was created, and also Cecil John Rhodes' gold mining venture as well. But the exploitation in the Kimberley diamond booming industry in the 1800s, that automatically was more lucrative than the gold discovery on the Witwatersrand. That is where the birth of Anglo American came from. The Oppenheimers, that is how they basically made their name by becoming and getting involved into mining itself. Now, according to this Peter Major, which is a gatekeeping prostitute, nonetheless, the merger with Canadian giant tech is poised to shift its center of gravity even further towards Vancouver, being in Canada, signaling a strategic retreat from South Africa. Now, on top of this unbundling of its coal assets into Tungela, which is another resource company, the looming sale of De Beers, which was also owned by Anglo American, and a calculated push to reinvent itself as a copper driven powerhouse by shedding platinum assets and interests. Piece by piece, Anglo American, that once dominated more than 80% of the JSE, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, once stood as a symbol of South African industrial might, is now quietly exiting South Africa. Now, what do we do as South Africans? Are we going to stand on the sidelines and watch a company of this magnitude just exit our shores, exit our geographical region without any form of accountability? What do we do? Yes, the first option is we need to take them to task for the damage and destruction to the environment that they have caused. Remember, every mining company gets issued a mining license, whereby in that license it means that a social plan, an economic plan, an environmental plan must be met. That's according to the outliers that are contained in that particular plan that gets submitted to the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources. So when that application meets all that criteria, socio, economical, environmental, it's only then upon the approval, once it goes to the minister then is a final custodian that will either approve the mining license or will not approve the mining license. Now, according to the strategy plan and the document handed for approval for mining license, if as a mining company that you violate any of those particular layouts as mentioned in that document that gets submitted to the Department of Mineral Resources, or should I say, yeah, Petroleum and Mineral Resources, if for any reason that those outliers are not complied by the mining company, that means you are also in violation of the Mineral Petroleum Resources Development Act. So you will be held to account for whatever you do as a mining company, because there are environmental laws that you need to adhere to. Now, in this instance, Anglo American has left, or is in the process of leaving quietly, South Africa. So this guy, Peter Major, that I mentioned to you not too long ago, has stated that this was on the cards of Anglo American a while back already. Now, this is what I cannot understand. Leadership has changed in South Africa constantly. We've had presidents come, we've had presidents go. Throughout this entire period where head of state is changed in South Africa, what happens in the private sector? The private sector continues thriving. Now, the very same private sector, these multinational companies and transnational companies as well, while they are corporations in their undertaking, what they do is they lobby the very same government that which they complain about. So, for example, if I'm a mining company, I'm operating in a primary industry that adds huge amount of gross domestic product to South Africa, and plus also it improves our net exports because we export a huge number of raw materials, specifically from mining, that leads to automotive, to catalytic converters, as well as also steel and palladium. These are just some of the things that we export that improves our net export value on the balance of accounts of South Africa. So now we need to understand the veracity of mining. Mining is a big contributor to our GDP. In the year 2024, if I'm not mistaken, it contributed close to 500 billion rand in taxes alone. Now you can imagine how much money mining conglomerates, transnational and multinational companies make. Now, in this exit of Anglo American, yes, we understand Anglo American wants to make itself a viable player in the copper mining industry. And I do understand that with the strategic sale from its platinum interests as well as gold interests, we also need to understand that why is Anglo American all of a sudden just exiting South Africa without any form of accountability? That needs to be taken to task here, because mining is a very extractive industry. So if you are extracting, surely the communities around the mines also matter. Surely the people that are working at the mine also matter. So why are we allowing a company of this magnitude and this size and this influence in South Africa just to leave without any form of recourse, without any form of accountability? And I think it is disgusting. We as South Africans, we watch these commissions. We had the Zondo Commission before, then we have the Matlanga Commission. Why are we not fighting where it matters? Why only at fighting where change can really happen? What's the use of being mad at a politician? What is the use of being mad at the municipal mayor? What is the use of being mad at the South African police force for their incapability of fighting crime in South Africa? Yet we have big business influencing politics in South Africa, placing heads of state in certain positions, donating funds to political parties, and yet we expect the same or different outcome. The very same multinational companies that have come through colonialism, neoliberalism, apartheid, segregation are the very same multinational and transnational corporations that are still shaping South Africa today. This was mentioned on Penwell the Black Pen. South Africa is a company. And yes, South Africa is a company. If you can see with the likes of Anglo American exiting South Africa without any form of accountability, surely that tells you what is the rest of South Africa made up. If a mining company can disrespect the country that enriched itself, that turned it into a global powerhouse, is not doing anything on the verge of exiting this region that was so profitable for decades upon decades, extraction upon extraction, resource acquisition, land disposition, wage disputes in the mining sector, etc. And yet we are allowing a company just to exit and leave without actually giving a fuck about South Africans. So ask yourself that question. Now, in relation to this dumb gatekeeping prostitute Peter Major, I also want to bring something else as well here. Peter Major, yes, he's a mining expert, or should I say a so-called mining expert, like he likes to say, a man that is old as time, literally. Now, according to Anglo American Exit, they say that there is no commercial logic left for this mining company to sink new shafts in South Africa. So, according to his analysis and understanding, even with the discovery of new ore deposits, whether that be iron ore, whether that be gold, whether that be uranium, whether that be diamonds, whether that be platinum, whether that be any other form of precious metal or platinum group metals, for example, with the discovery of that, there's no logic for Anglo American to continue sinking shafts. There's no need. There's no need for that to happen. So this is his rationality and his logical thinking as to why Anglo American is exiting South Africa, because they don't see any logic for them to continue sinking shafts underground, even with the discovery of new mineral deposits. Now we understand that is the arrogance from a mining expert, as well as the arrogance from a multinational corporation. Now, of course, the scapegoat. Now, as you do know that South Africa is a very politically unstable country. We have the ruling class, and then we have the ruling party. Then we have the tripartite alliance that makes up 3 of the largest union bodies in South Africa. Then, in addition to that, we also have big business that also operate with special impunity and have special interest in the political landscape of South Africa. Now, Anglo American being one of those corporations, multinational and transnational, they've had a heavy influence in South Africa and Africa for that matter. Now, what do these companies do? When a company sees that it can no longer produce, it can no longer gain, it can no longer increase their market share, and it can no longer be that force that it used to be known for back then in the industrial era, when it was taking land, dispossessing communities to divide and conquer from the Cecil John Rhodes era, when it was working through missionaries on the continent by bringing in the Western concept of democracy, when it was paying mercenaries to take over land from kings and traditional chiefdoms across Southern Africa and South Africa, when it was killing people that were working the land, and when it was opposing rules and norms of customaries that had a unique spiritual connection with the land at the time, when it felt that this land is so rich in resources and it's so rich in mineral deposits, we need to get rid of these people that are on this land. Now ask yourself that question. The scapegoat, they call this transformation. Now, if the mining companies, majority of the mining companies in South Africa are still held and owned by foreign shareholders. This is not owned by South Africans for sure. Yes, there may be a few, far and a few in between. But when we talk about the influence and the ferocity of mining ownership in South Africa, we can understand that where the actual ownership still lies. The ownership of South African mining industry still lies with the foreign hands. And now we can also understand the influence of the multinationals, so that when there's a capital flight taking place, no government can hold these corporations to account, because guess what? Their influence is so big, and their funding towards politics in South Africa, in that very shitty environment that they call unstable, is the very same environment that enriches them financially. The very same environment where the policies may be bad and the labor laws may be skewed, as the very same environment that multinationals thrive in. The very same environment that brought you COVID, where they said that no, we need to have lockdowns done in the country, is the very same multinationals that were thriving through COVID. The very same mining companies that were part and parcel of the Marikana massacre is the very same mining companies that continue to profit to this day. The very same mining companies that went against AMCU's members striking for a higher wage, just for a higher wage, yet off the backs of these mining companies that are making billions and billions of rands through extraction, are the very same mining houses that tell the government, you know what, the environment is unstable, the political environment is unstable, we cannot thrive. So what do? We pack up and we leave. Now, do you think that is a fair assessment on any person in South Africa? No, it's not. Mining is a major contributor to our GDP. Taxes, specifically the fiscus, in the year 2024, I do speak under correction, but I do think mining contributed in the region of close to 4 plus in taxes alone to the fiscus. Now you can understand how influential mining is. Now, back to the part of transformation. It is also fascinating to understand that, critique is coming because Anglo American is exiting South Africa. And on the very same end, Anglo American's response to the reason for them exiting is transformation. Yet transformation doesn't equate to the actual ownership of minerals in South Africa. When you are given a mining license, you're licensed to mine the minerals beneath the ground. And that minerals beneath the ground, you do not own. So in all fairness, we have gatekeepers all over. We've got gatekeepers in government that issue the mining permits, and then we have gatekeepers working for the multinational and transnational corporations that are enabling this environment of decay to continue, and this further capital flight to happen. So now we go further with regards to the blaming of transformation. We also need to understand the facts tell us a different thing. Now, according to the Mineral Council of South Africa, this is now 2025 data, of course, mining companies achieved a 39% weighted average of empowerment shareholding, well above the 26% of the 2010 mining charter. Second to that, it's beyond the 30% threshold that was set in the recent charter. So kudos to them. 39%, that's still not enough. You still have the balance of mining still being owned by other people. 39% is not enough. That's not something worth writing home about. So if transformation is supposedly the problem, and this is part and parcel of why Anglo American is exiting South Africa, how do we explain that the mining houses that are surpassing these very empowerment targets that were being set, how do we explain that concept? So the truth, I guess, is more complex than what it is on paper. And obviously, it's far less flattering for me to point fingers. I'm not here to point a finger at the government, neither am I here to point a finger at Anglo American. The only thing that I wish for is accountability. And as a South African, we cannot see a company of this magnitude just exit and leave without taking accountability for the environmental destruction as well as the destruction upon the sector it has brought. And we also need to do and compile research of the land that Anglo American has acquired around all the communities where they operate and where they mine. How was that land acquired? We need to also put a research team together, a bunch of bright people that can investigate as to how an actual mining company has acquired that land. Because trust me, somewhere in the archives, somewhere out there are mining houses that have acquired land or the rights to mine through illegitimate means. This is written in history. So if we do a factual count and we do a research and we go back and we prove prima facie that this could be the case, then by all means we have an opportunity to also take land that could potentially have been illegitimately acquired by mining companies in the first place. So that particular instance is something that could work for South Africa. Secondly, like I mentioned to you, the targets that were set, the 39% as per the 2025 data from the Mineral Council of South Africa. Now, for me, I find transformation is completely misleading, as well as it's just a distraction. We do understand that it's easy for a mining company to blame transformation. It's easy for a mining company to say that the political environment is unstable. But yet in that very environment that is unstable, that lacks transformation, is the very same environment that enriches you with billions and billions and billions of rands, sometimes even dollars for that matter. So I feel that as South Africans, we deserve better. We deserve more accountability, we deserve better, and we deserve respect. No company comes into your country and operates and leaves without taking account for what it has done. So if we want this from politicians, if we want this shit from service delivery, if we want this from mayors, if we want this from municipalities, why can we not expect the same from these multinational corporations in South Africa? Yes, it may not be a multinational corporation's duty to deal with socio-economic matters in South Africa, but surely if you are coming to South Africa, you're operating in a country and you're enriching yourself and you're making billions and billions of the people, don't you think you deserve, as a South African, respect? And also, don't you think that that corporation that is operating there should take account for what they do? It's either they are progressive or they're not progressive. It's either they are destroying or they're building. In this case, mining has a huge history in South Africa. We understand the migrant labor system. We also understand with the establishment of Bantustans. We also need to understand the Group Areas Act that was implemented. Large parts and parcel, that same way of segregation was practiced throughout the migrant labor system throughout Southern Africa when these mining companies were birthed in the 1800s through the Cecil John Rhodes era. We need to also understand that there are gatekeepers everywhere in the mining sector. We need to also understand that when a mining company operates in our country as a sovereign nation, you cannot just pack up and leave. You need to account to the people of South Africa. You need to account to the communities around these mines. If the environment around the mine has not been rehabilitated, then why are you leaving? Shouldn't we hold companies to account and make them sign agreements that before you leave and you decide to leave, by law, you're going to fix the environment where you mined? If there is no schools and there are no institutions and there is no infrastructure in that community where that mine is situated, then you will sign a lifelong agreement as a company that for the longest it takes you to rehabilitate that environment, you'll be liable for a deduction of your revenue and profits every single month. From that money goes towards the rehabilitation of the environment. Secondly, out of mining profits, they should also take a portion of the revenue that has to go specifically to infrastructure. So if you are mining platinum, and this is a community situated around the platinum belt, so if you want to build roads in that community and ensure that there's infrastructure for that community that is living around that mine, by all means you will deliver on that mandate. So you get given a time frame. This project will take at least 5 years to complete. You as a mining company, you fund that project. You find the subcontractors and you employ the locals. And then second to that, if that project is not completed within that 5-year window as stated out in the project outline and what you need to do for the community, we take your profits and we take your assets. Simple as that. If you try to leave the country, we seize all your mining operations. If you do not rehabilitate an environment that which you operated and you left it worse than what you found it, by all means, we will make you sign a lifetime agreement whereby you have to share your profits with the people, and you need to ensure that that place is fully rehabilitated. If you're not building schools, you're not building institutions, you're not building banks, you're not building learning centers, and you are not building infrastructure that will connect the people from the place of work to the place to live, then by all means you have failed as a mining company. And as respected name that you may be in the industry, as a conglomerate that you may be spoken about in the peers of capitalist walls and capitalist wealth accumulation, I'm going to tell you one thing is for sure. Anglo American, this is South Africa. You are lucky to become who you are. If it wasn't for the conquest and colonial habits of Cecil John Rhodes, then there would have been no Anglo American to this day. So therefore, as a multinational and transnational company, you should be thanking South Africa for making you who you are today. And by leaving South Africa, I feel that is a complete slap in the face and it's disrespectful. In all fairness, we all need jobs in this country. We all need land. We all want accountability. And as a corporation, that doesn't make you any better than our politicians that fail us. So Anglo American, do the right thing. If not, then maybe we should just block the merger between yourselves and Tech Resources, and we will take you to the highest court of the land, and we will take you to Parliament, and we will potentially block the merger between you and another company. And until that merger does not go through, you ought to fix the mess that you left here in South Africa. Once again, I want to say this. Land ownership is another area of concern. And yes, individual land ownership, guess what? According to the land audit by the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, this is based on 2017 data. Yes, colored people, we own 15% of individual land ownership in South Africa. So just as the multinational corporation in the mining sector that potentially may have illegitimately acquired land, so do we own 15% of individual land ownership in the country. And who the fuck are we to tell people, especially the black child, that they should fight for land? Yet we're sitting on a position of privilege. We're not empowering. We are actually bullshitting each other. And what do? We tell other people, you know what? It's always them. It's always them. They're acting entitled. But who the fuck are we as people? Who are we? Yet that very same people we are saying that act entitled, we are speaking from a position of privilege. Yes, colored folks own 15% of land ownership in South Africa. 15%, 1-5. Black people only make up 4% of land ownership. Even if you pull up 2025 statistics to this day, it has not changed post 994. So who are we to tell the black child that they act entitled? We need a mindset change. Colored people need a mindset change. Before we speak out and before we say these nuances and before we bullshit and before we say these things to other black people, we need to understand where we come from. We also come from privilege. We like to go on social media and we like to speak about the colored person being regarded as a second-class citizen in the Western Cape. Yet, the statistics are there. I'm going to add a snapshot of the actual statistic of land ownership of colored people in South Africa. And it makes you wonder, not a single colored person that speaks on current affairs, international affairs, land reform, constitutional development, public policy, the whole host of other things. I've not heard a single person mention that colored people are the second largest landowners in the country. Individual landowners, privately held land, 15% we make that up. Now, where are the people that are so-called driven by social justice? Where are the people that are fighting for land? Where are the so-called colored people that are talking about matters that has a meaningful impact on their communities, and yet the very same privilege we forget to speak about? So before we open our mouth and before we utter these disgusting nuances towards our black brothers and sisters, let's take a step back and tell ourselves, what can we do for the black child? What can we do to also improve land ownership so that they also have their opportunity to earn land? Before you come with a story with me about the koi in the sand, I do not want to hear that bullshit, because that is not my history. I don't bear lineage of a koi in the sand, and neither am I motherfucking brown. Colored is not a race, it's only a culture. So whether you like it or not, that's entirely up to you. For me, I don't accept that level of shit. It's either we work together and we achieve a common goal, or we remain where the fuck we are. And we can speak from a position of privilege. And guess what? We can throw these nuances out in the open space, and we don't care. And I think it's high time that colored people start waking the fuck up. I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm speaking for those that are not speaking about this. I will bring it forward and I will state that. Yes, colored people, they are the second largest land ownership by race in the country on individual land ownership. So before we say anything about the black brothers and sisters acting entitled that they should not be given land, we need to check ourselves, because guess what? We come from a position of privilege. So before we say any bullshit towards any person of color, black, whatsoever, you learn, and you learn to work together. If you cannot work together, shut up and keep your privilege. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching The Plantation, and have yourself a wonderful Sunday. There will be an extra video that will be part of my graduation. That is just an extra special for those slaves that have subscribed. Please watch, share, and subscribe. Thank you.